So let's start for a moment with looking at who you should ask. Who should we ask advice from? So the Mishnah says, in Pirkei Avos, in Perek Beis, Mishnah Zayin, it says, Marbe Eitza, Marbe Tvuna. If someone seeks a lot of Eitza, of advice, he will have a lot of understanding, a lot of Tvuna. It seems from the Mishnah that first comes the seeking of advice, and then comes the Bina, the deep understanding. The word Bina is related to the word boneh, that you could build, that you bring the information in, and then you could build, extrapolate based on what you've learned. So first you need the Eitzah. You need to ask people, and then from there, from that which you learn, you could be boneh. You could get things deeper and build a bigger picture. However, the Mishnah later on in Perek Hey, Mishnah Chaf Aleph, is going through the life, the years of a person's life, and it says that at the age of 40, you've accomplished, you've achieved Bina. At the age of 50, Eitzah. It sounds like Bina, that knowledge base, comes first, and then comes Eitzah. So which one is it? Is it Marbe Eitzah, Marbe Bina? That if a person seeks Eitzah, advice, he will have Bina? Or is it at the age of 40 you have Bina, at the age of 50 you have Eitzah? So the answer is very simple, and that is one is referring to the one seeking advice, and one is about the one giving advice. When it comes to seeking advice, you can be 2 years old and you can seek advice. And by seeking advice, you will be Marbe Bina. You will become more knowledgeable, you will become deeper and more aware of everything that you need to know in order to be successful in life. That's Perek Beis. Mishnah Hey is referring to giving advice. At the age of 40, you already have developed a certain knowledge base, a certain deep understanding, Bina. But only at the age of 50 can you start giving advice. Now, why is that? At the birthday party, you get anointed, here, now you can give advice. Something hang on your wall, I now can give advice. What's that about? So the idea is that the person at the age of 50, again, you have to look at how exact nowadays all the age groups over there in the Mishnah, how it applies. But at a certain point in life, a person has life experience. He's been there, he's done that, he's seen it, he's experienced it. And just because someone's super duper smart at the age of 20 does not mean that he's fitting to give advice. I always mention this to some of our students when they're freshly married. I always hear that talking to one of the students, and he says, his other friend who just got married, he told me that this and that, and this is how they did it, and this is why they did it, etc. And by me, my family, my marriage, it's not like that. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, can't do that. You don't look for advice from another newly married couple to how your marriage should be. First of all, whatever they tell you might not be true. That's rule number one. And just because you saw it on social media, how happy they are, how this and that, etc., you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't want to look for marriage advice from your roommate. That's not where it comes from. You want to speak to someone who's been married for a long time, that is able to give you his life experiences and be able to give you the advice. So when seeking advice, we want to try to find someone that has a breadth of knowledge and breadth of experience that they can then go ahead and guide us. And that's throughout our lives. We're always going to be seeking advice, Be'ezrat Hashem, and we want to make sure that we're identifying the right people. Because sometimes there are a lot of people out there that love to give advice. A lot of people that are well-meaning and they're happy to listen to you and talk to you and advise you, but not necessarily do they know how to give good advice. And therefore, we be very, very careful. Like this Mishnah says, look for that person, whether he has to be 50 years old or not. Maybe not necessarily, but you want it to be the person that has that broad experience and that ability to be able to understand you and give the advice that you need. Okay. That's who to ask. Now, how does one bring himself to ask for advice? So, humility is the key trait in that. Because when I'm going and asking someone for advice, basically what I'm saying is as follows. You don't say these words, but this is really what you're saying. I have no idea idea what to do. I don't know if I should do this, if I should do that, if I should go here, if I should go there, if I should speak this way or that way, if I should learn this, if I should learn that. I don't know what to do. And I understand that you have the ability to know what to do. And therefore, can you please fill my void? Can you please give me advice? And that requires an extraordinary amount of humility. Anivus, anava, is the Hebrew word. Ayin, nun, vav, hey, is the Hebrew word for humility. To be able to go ahead and do that. And that's part of receiving the Torah at Har Sinai. Part of the Torah, receiving Torah at Har Sinai required humility. And that's why Har Sinai was chosen as the mountain that the Torah would be given on, because it was the lowest of the mountains, wasn't as beautiful. And the gematria of Sinai is anava, with the kolel. It's the same gematria because of that reason. Because humility is an integral part in being able to receive the Torah, because in order to receive advice, we have to realize that people beyond us that have a better understanding of things, and we have to be willing to allow ourselves to admit that and go ahead and seek advice. Okay. Point number 3. How well does a person have to know me? I'm going to seek advice from someone. What's the ideal way? And we could give a whole other talk about who should be giving advice and how to give advice. I'm going to stay away from that for a moment. Let's focus on us seeking advice. Who's that person? So there's a fascinating Ruach Chaim. Reb Chaim Volozhiner, author of the Nefesh HaChaim. He also has a sefer on Pirkei Avos. And on that mission, Perek Beis, Marbe Eitza, Marbe Tfuna, he says as follows. He has a diuk. Why does it say Marbe Eitza? Marbe means like a lot of Eitza. I mean, you go to one person, get your Eitza, done deal, right? It's Marbe, a lot of Eitza gives you a lot of Tfuna. What does that mean? So he explains as follows. He says, theoretically, you could go to multiple people to try to get advice. And you can hear what this person has to say, and he said this person has to say, and this person has to say. And he writes, because most of these people don't really know you anyway, so therefore you can try to take advice from multiple people, and then find a common denominator between all of the advice being given that you know fits best with what you're capable and able to do. So Marbe Eitza means that you ask advice from many people. And Marbe Tfuna, that will give you a deeper understanding of what it is that you're supposed to do. Now, some people have a sickness called Marbe Eitza, okay? And they just can't make up their minds, just walk around to people all day and all night. That's not the point. The point is that you want to try to get clearer and clearer and clearer what it is that you feel is the right thing to do. So it could be you nailed it on the head with number 1. But if you feel like maybe there's another aspect that the person doesn't know about, or another area that he didn't get about you, so therefore you want to go to someone else, go to someone else. But just to ask 1,000 people of Eitzas, you're just going to become confused, you're never going to be able to get anything clear. But as you're clarifying things, as you're trying to get to know what you're supposed to do, it's helpful sometimes to seek from different people if each person can add something new to what you have. However, that is not necessarily the ideal. What would be the ideal? The ideal would be is if the person that you're asking advice from knows you, can connect to you in a very real way, can try to see the whole scope of everything that you're talking about. Sometimes when you have like these quick sessions with someone to try to ask advice on very important topics, how much can the person really get to know you in those couple minutes? In that 25 minutes, the half hour, you can make a life decision based on one little meeting. How's that possible? The person has to understand you, has to get the whole scope of everything. You have to be able to feel like you have the time to express yourself. There are times I like asking advice from people, but there are certain people who are tremendous people that I never went to go ask advice from. Why? If you give me an hour and a half with them, I would ask their advice. But I knew it wasn't possible. So then that wasn't on the table to go ahead and speak to them, because I knew that I needed to give the whole picture of what was going on with my family and what the dynamics were. Whatever it was I was seeking advice for, I needed to know in order that I could feel comfortable that the whole thing was being looked at and understood and weighed out. I needed to know that I could have that time. So the ideal is that you're able to connect, and the person is able to connect to you in a very, very real way. The Ksava Kabbalah, quoted this a couple times, of Yaakov Tzvi Kellenberg. He lived at the end of the 1700s, He wrote an incredible sefer called Ksav HaKabbalah on Chumash, and over there he writes in Perek Beis of Parshas Bereshis, he says that the word Eitzah, advice, is related to the word eitz, a tree. It's also related to the word Eitzat Einayim. When you close your eyes really tight, it's called you're being Eitzat Einayim. You're tightening your eyelids. So what does the word mean? He says, why is it that a tree is so strong? Wood is so strong. Why is that? Because all the little pieces that make up the tree are tight together. They're very, very, very well connected. And therefore, since they're so tight, when you hit it, it feels hard. Says that's really what's happening when you close your eyes very tight. Same thing, you're connecting things very, very tight. He says that is the ultimate eitzah, the ultimate advice, is when the person giving you advice is able to connect in a very, very strong way. So we want, when we're looking for advice, we want to make sure that the person can really understand. And that goes back to the first step that we mentioned. You have to be humble. You have to be able to be open. Sometimes we ask for a certain thing, we tell half the story. So, and you'll get the answer that you want, of course. That's why you left that other half of the story. Right? That's not called Ena Eitzah. You could have done that on your own. You just want to blame it on someone else. And tell other people that this person told you to do it. That's not real. We're not joking around here. We're talking about serious. But if you want to look for an Eitzah, you have to give the whole story. And even the parts that you don't know if they're important or not, you say, I'm not sure if this is important, but let me tell you, right? You want to bring the person in and allow you to connect, allow him to connect to the situation in its fullest. Okay, when you get that, then the person that you chose is able to give you the Eitzah, and hopefully that is Margot Tfuna. It allows you to have a much deeper and broader perspective of what it is that we're supposed to be doing. Now this is very, very important. No one should think that seeking advice is something that is only for people that have issues or people that are in yeshiva. Seeking advice is something that happens throughout your entire life. I feel one of the greatest brachas that I have, thank Hashem for all the brachas that He's given me, but one of the greatest brachas that I have is that I have people obeying that I can go ahead and seek advice. They're people that I learned with 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, and we developed a relationship, and now we can't have as much time together as we used to, but anytime I get stuck or anytime I need to work through something and I need to speak it out, I call my Rebbe. It doesn't have to be the person that you see every day. It doesn't have to live in the same country. It doesn't have to be this person that you feel super connected to anymore. But I know that he understands me. I know that when I need him, he's going to be there for me. And I seek advice. And that's something that never, ever ends. Never ends. It's important that while we're here in yeshiva, we try to build those relationships. The relationship might change. It might be someone that we meet after we leave yeshiva. It might be someone that we met before we came to yeshiva. But we have to have those people that we're seeking advice from. We should never think that we're capable of doing everything on our own. And that doesn't mean that we're not great. It doesn't mean that we're not super people. On the contrary, I found the people that are the most successful people that I know are people that have people that they can go ahead and seek advice from. And that just allowed them to be so much more successful with everything that they've done, with everything that they've accomplished. So especially now, as we're learners, right, that was already last week, we're done with that. We all identify as learners, right? Okay, so now that we're learners, and we want to learn from everyone, and we want to try to learn everything that we can, we have that tremendous ava and cheshek and desire to go ahead and learn more, but we should also seek advice. We should seek advice and try to learn within our own lives of what's the best path, and how do we accomplish things, how do we get rid of things in our lives, how do we go ahead and break through the ceilings that we've put on ourselves or other people put on ourselves so that we could be the most successful that we could be. And Be'ezus Hashem, when we go into our Shavuos, with identifying as learners and also as people who seek advice, we will have the tools, the raw tools that are needed in order for us to be the most successful people that we can be.